I've been using the Garmin Forerunner 965 for the past few weeks now, and today I'm going to show you what it's like, if it's worth your money, and if you should buy it. I'll cover a wide variety of topics from the hardware to the software, and kind of what features it has, what it doesn't, and what you need to look out for before you buy this product. Now, when it comes to design and durability, I think the Garmin's are definitely more durable than Apple Watches. This one does have a very flat screen when it comes to kind of the screen and the bezel, so you are more likely to hit it against things, you're more likely to scratch it. So that's just one thing to keep in mind versus like the Epics and the higher tier Garmin watches out there. I take the approach of like, I don't really care, and I just bang my watch against things, and typically it's fine. Now, it comes included with like a silicone band, so one thing to keep in mind is when you do get that wet and you don't dry it off and you keep wearing it, it's just gonna continue to have more moisture on your wrist. Make sure to dry the silicone band after you're done working out, or else it's gonna leave like marks on your wrist. And that happens with any kind of fitness tracker or thing you wear on your wrist. So I highly recommend getting kind of like a more clothy based one that can dry much faster. In terms of hardware buttons, there are 5 hardware buttons just like every other Garmin watch. You know, start your run, to maneuver the watch. It's really nice that it has a touchscreen and you can just maneuver the entire watch using just the buttons, so I really appreciate that. And the one thing that I've noticed is just like the vibe. Like, if you're a runner, it's cool to wear a Garmin watch, whereas like if you're wearing an Apple Watch, people might not think you're as serious in your training. I think Coros kind of falls on the same bucket. I have videos on that too. But just the aesthetic that it gives off, like I'm training for something. Like, I'm a serious athlete. That's kind of the vibe that Garmin gives off. In terms of the display and the user experience, it's brightly colored. You can see it outside, which is really nice. I think some of the older Garmin watches it's harder to see in bright daylight, but this one, it does extremely well. It is now color based. One thing I realized when I had the Phoenix 7X, like it was black and white, and it had a little bit dose of color, and I was like, oh, that's okay, I can deal with it. When I started wearing the Garmin 965, I was like, wow, like the color actually does make a big difference. So just something to keep in mind. I don't think you really need it, but it's just nice to have. I would argue that the colors look a little too retro and like old school. It's like a video game vibe. I'm not the biggest fan, but I like having colors and things like that. Like the font's a little weird, but hey, it works. Now, first and foremost, you don't need to buy one of these, but if for some reason you do decide to buy one, use the links down below. It'll help support the channel. Then when it comes to like third-party integrations, it automatically integrates with Strava, so you can upload your runs straight to Strava. You don't have to worry about manually syncing it like you do on the iPhone and the Apple Watch. It's just not as clean, whereas Garmin just has cloud to cloud, whereas iPhone, you need to send it from your iPhone to Strava. I really appreciate that they have Apple Health integration. You're not going to get all the data that you do from an Apple Watch running into Apple Health, but you're going to get most of the data that you need, and then you can use that data in all your other apps. So let's say I track my run on my Garmin, I can have it input into Apple Health, and then my Whoop can read that data so it knows when I started and ended my run and give me like a straight score and figure out other data over here. Or if I just want to see trends over time in Apple Health, I just like to use Apple Health as like the sole main hub where I input all of my fitness and health data. So I think that's like a critical component. Garmin does write more health data than Coros does, so it's always nice to see them adding more data that they're writing to Apple Health, which leads into our next thing, which is fitness tracking. So the Garmin 965 is one tier above the Garmin 265, right? The 265 is mainly for running. The 965 incorporates a lot of other features as well. So this is a great watch if you're training for a triathlon, if you're running, if you want just a lot more features in your watch than the basic one. When it comes to heart rate accuracy, I typically wear 2 watches all the time, and I noticed that the heart rate on the Garmin and my Apple Watch are pretty consistent. You can connect both of these devices to a chest-based heart rate strap, so I like to wear the Polar H10 linked below. And that will get you the most accurate data, because depending on how you wear the watch, the tightness, your skin color, hair, tattoos, like that can all impact the heart rate accuracy for you specifically. In terms of GPS, it does have multi-band GPS, which is shown to potentially be more accurate. I noticed it to be pretty spot on. I've tested the top 4 running watches. Video is linked below, and they're all really relatively pretty good at getting your distance and pacing. One thing to keep in mind is they're not perfect, so there are going to be some discrepancies. Don't take your mileage and pacing as if that is the sole truth. Like, just take it all with a grain of salt. Like, it's pretty close. It's close enough. But the spot where I've seen distance and pacing be the most accurate is on the track. The Apple Watch is probably the king when it comes to track mode. It's just the user experience of being able to show up to the track, start track mode on your Apple Watch, and then actually get the accurate distance and pacing on there. Like, it felt spot on meter to meter. The Garmin is relatively okay too. It's just you have to start a different track mode. You can't really switch from an outdoor run and then onto the track mode when you arrive at the track. So there are some small friction points to initiating a track mode run, but I did notice that it was like okay, even on the map, like you can see a video here, like it didn't stick exactly to my lane, and I'm not really sure why that is. So it was like pretty good, but it wasn't amazing. And then if you are trying to improve your running, the one thing I do like, and take all this information with a grain of salt, is like the race predictions, marathons. So it'll tell you like, hey, what do we predict you're gonna run a 5K, half marathon, marathon? And it's just interesting to see that information, especially as it's changing. It's like, all right, is my fitness increasing or is it decreasing? So when it's decreasing, I'm like, uh-oh, either I'm injured or I need to start training again. Like I'm slowing down a little bit. A new feature that I really like using is like routes to run in, and I can use the Garmin navigation. You can go and set ahead and say, hey, I want to run a 5-mile route starting from where I am and do a loop, or I want to run north, east, west. It's going to give you turn-by-turn navigations as well as kind of a map that you can see on your watch in terms of where I need to run. So I think that's a great way to kind of explore new cities. I just appreciate presetting a route that I want to run and then knowing, all right, we can just follow this and I'll be fine. I'll hit the numbers that I need to and I won't get lost. One thing I would love to see that Coros does really well is you can draw a route. So let's say I want to just like tour a city, but I also want to have navigation. I can draw a route and it'll automatically create a route that I want to run. You can set points on the map to like where you want to go. It's just a bit more complicated. When something has too much friction to actually initiating that feature, most people are not going to use it. That's including me because I'm extremely lazy. I've noticed a lot of people want to get a Garmin just so they can take a photo of their watch to kind of show how much they ran to share on social media. So that's just another thing to keep in mind is like, how do other people perceive you with this watch? Whereas with like an Apple Watch, it might not show all that data in one easy to see view when you're trying to take that iPhone to POV wrist photo for your social media profiles. Also, make sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Shervin Shares. I'll be posting wrist-based mileage photos. Next would be the health and wellness features. One thing I do love about the Garmin watch is like the training load. It'll tell me, hey, you're being productive, you're overstrained, you're detraining. Well, like, actually it can be kind of depressing because if you're detraining and you're wearing the watch and maybe like you're injured or you're just not running as much as you used to, you don't want to see that. So I've noticed that when I'm not training for a specific event, I'll take the Garmin watch off and I won't use it. So that's something to keep in mind. And then there are some other fancy features like stress, body battery, VO2 max. And although these things are nice, I think the VO2 max I definitely appreciate. The stress and the body battery, like I never actually use those features. They're there and it's like, okay, it's kind of insightful and helpful, but I don't think enough people are going to spend all their time investing in like looking at this data. Yeah, it's another data point and it's valuable and it could help you maybe understand how you're feeling, like if your intuition is not the best. But for the most part, these are just kind of like extra fancy features that I will bet you, if they have like statistics, most people are not actually looking and using. So I wouldn't take these into account for your purchase decision. And then sleep tracking. So if you have watched my channel, you know I love sleep tracking devices, the Oura Ring, the Whoop strap, and the Garmin now does sleep tracking as well. And they do measure your heart rate 24/7. So it seems very competitive to the Whoop strap, except there's no membership fee. And I've noticed that it's like decent at measuring my sleep and being accurate in terms of when I actually went to sleep, when I actually woke up. I think for any device, I don't look at sleep stages. It's just not worth looking at that information because you don't know how accurate it is. It's all these devices are trying to guess based on machine learning algorithms, and you don't want that data to impact how you feel throughout the day. But the data is there. If you want to get like a vague general idea of how you feel based on your sleep, like that's there. You can wear the watch on your wrist and you'll get that info, but it's not something that's necessary. If you really want to make sure you're getting good sleep tracking data, I'd go with the Oura or Whoop and then just wear your Garmin throughout the day. But that's like if you have an endless budget, you know. Next are the smartwatch features. So a big part of running is having music, right? You want to be able to listen to music. You want to be able to change your song, change the volume. I think having your phone is probably the easiest because you can just press the up, down volume buttons here, pick a new playlist and all that stuff. But sometimes when you're running, that's very hard to do. So being able to do that on your watch is the next best thing. The Apple Watch is probably the second closest thing to the iPhone. I can use their digital crown to change the volume. I can go pick playlists and all that stuff. It's touchscreen, so if my hands are not wet and I'm not wearing gloves, that can be valuable. But then the Garmin does offer the ability to do all these things, but it's not that easy. You have to kind of go deep into menus. You got to press a lot of buttons. And if you're running, you're more than likely not going to do this. And if you have your phone with you, you might as well pull out your phone and do it because it'll be that much faster. But let's say you're not bringing your phone. You can download offline music. They don't offer a way to stream like you could on the Apple Watch, but that's something you have to kind of think beforehand and prep and plan and then connect your watch to your Wi-Fi, download the playlist offline. And I do appreciate that they're integrated with like Spotify and I can download like my favorite running playlists. So if you know you're the type of person who's going to prep and plan for your runs and actually get that music downloaded, then that's something you're going to use. But I think for most people, like you're just probably going to stick to your iPhone because that's a frictionless experience. When it comes to calls and message notifications, I think this is something that's probably unnecessary in this day and age because we're getting so many notifications and pings, but you can get your calls and notifications on the Garmin as long as your phone is nearby and connected via Bluetooth. Not necessary. I would want it if I don't have my phone. I want to be able to make sure I get calls in case of an emergency, or if I need to call 911, like having an emergency SOS feature on the Apple Watch, I really appreciate. There are safety features on the Garmin, but you really need to make sure that your phone is nearby with you. Which leads us into the next thing, which is payments. Let's say you go for a run with friends, you don't want to bring your phone, and then you all decide to grab brunch or coffee after, and you want to pay for the thing. I like having payments on my wrist. The Apple Watch, you know, with Apple Pay, Garmin does have Garmin Pay, but it doesn't support all the cards that you want. So most of my cards actually don't work. Maybe I just use niche banks. banks, but they only support certain cards, and then you can add it, you will enter in your code, and then you can pay with the Garmin wherever NFC payments are accepted. So like it's capable of paying for things, but just realize that you might not be able to add all the cards that you want. You know, there's certain rewards, percentage back. You got to make sure you use the right card. Next, battery life and charging. I think from a charging experience perspective, I wish all these would support Qi wireless charging, because when you're traveling, like you want to bring less chargers, but they do offer their own proprietary plug. You plug that in. I have found some like USB-C adapters online where it's like really small. So that's like a thought if you want to bring like a USB-C cable and then just have the small adapter that you bring for your watch. It's not the most ideal charging experience because you got to plug it into the bottom and then you've got to put your watch upside down, but it works. And that's where the battery life comes in. So the Garmin watches are extremely good at battery life, depending on how much you run, how much fitness tracking you do, if you wear it while you sleep. Like there's so many variables, which satellite feature that you use, which GPS feature that you use in terms of accuracy when you're running, like all of that impacts the battery life. But for the most part, it's pretty good. I would say most of these watches can get you like 3 to 5 to 7 days of battery life, especially if you're working out a lot. Like the fitness tracking features are gonna drain your battery much faster. So it's just about like this inconsistent, every few days, you're gonna have to charge your watch. But if you're going on like a weekend trip, I know as long as I charge my watch beforehand, I can go on that weekend trip and then I don't need to bring the charger. So I really like that. And if you're willing to go into the settings and change it to optimize, you know, less GPS pings, less heart rate tracking, like then you will be able to optimize the battery to last even longer if you really want. Now, price and should you buy this? So the Garmin 265 currently is at $600 US, which is an insane amount for a watch. If you plan to wear this every day, I think it's worth it. I think if you're going to be training with it and then you're going to plan to use it outside of training as well, there are a ton of features in the Garmin watch that are extremely valuable. And if you like the look, the style, and you plan to continue wearing it outside of training, then go for it. But there's a lot of people who will buy a watch, they'll train with it, and then once their training program is done, the watch collects dust. So be mindful of what's going to happen after the fact. That's kind of why I really appreciate the Apple Watch. Like it's good enough and you can still use it outside of the fitness daily life. Like it's still a smartwatch on your wrist as well. If you're someone who was trying to save money, go buy a cheaper watch that's used that kind of gets your data, or even just use your phone. Like this is also a great fitness tracking device. You can buy a heart rate monitor on your chest, get accurate heart rate data, get somewhat accurate distance spacing data with your phone. And if you feel limited by the tools that you already have, then go ahead and buy this watch. I think if you have the money to spend and you want the latest and greatest, like this is one of the better watches out there that you can buy. Go use the links down below. It'll really help support the channel. Since you enjoyed this video, go watch my video where I compare 4 of the top best running watches. It'll be linked right here.